everyone. Vasu Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast. Coming up on today's podcast, the NBA, the last 12 to 15 games for different teams. Some teams that are hot. Phoenix Suns, we talked about all day yesterday. They ended up losing to Boston, but Boston's got another game today. Major League Baseball we'll talk about as well, too. Two big series, one in the American League, one in the National League. Dodgers-Padres and the Seattle-Boston series in the American League. By the way, for those wagers, the visiting teams won. So if you're an underdog player, you might have had a good day yesterday. So we'll talk about that and more. We'll talk about all sorts of potpourri things as we get to the weekend, a preview of the MLB and the NBA weekend as we wind down the NBA and get ramped up for the MLB. That's coming up on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Hello, everybody. Casey Freelove, Charlie O, Vasu Party. How are you, gentlemen? What's going on? Casey?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Good to be back with you guys. I've had some technical issues, as they say, because I work in a building that was built in, I believe, 1920-something, which has internet, but sometimes it doesn't cooperate a little bit. So I'm sorry I missed you on Monday because it was a good weekend that just passed, but there's another good weekend ahead, plenty to talk about, and I'm ready to go. I think it's kind of a slow start to baseball. I'm 7-4, so you made a little money if you're playing with my picks, but I'd certainly like to improve that. I guess I could have just bet my own team for the past, 10 days in a row and just made a crap load of money having bet on the Oakland A's, but I was a little reluctant because of their slow start. But I know, folks, this is a nationwide show, but all three of us are up here in Northern California, and Oakland A's yellow and gold, or green and gold fever has taken over, Charlie, the Sacramento and Bay Area, I believe, at this point.
Absolutely, Casey. You know, it's kind of crazy. We talked about how the A's always start slow. We didn't expect them to start quite as slow as they did, but they always start a little slow. And then they turned around and have just gone crazy. And everybody, you know, it's really funny. The Oakland A's have traditionally played great baseball overall. And when you look at their overall success as compared to the Giants historically over the last basically 60 years, the A's have been a more successful franchise. And yet they play in obscurity in relationship to the Giants. And it's natural because the Giants were here 10 years before the A's. So they're always going to be the little brother, if you will, to the Giants. And even though the A's are having this phenomenal success, if the stadiums could be back at capacity, the Giants would be playing before sold out houses, while the A's would be playing before roughly about 12,500 fans. So, but right now the A's are great bets. But the other side is right now, much to our surprise, the San Francisco Giants are also a great bet.
Let's see here. Where's Oakland again? Oh, no, I'm just kidding, everybody. I've been here for a long time. Where's Oakland again? I just want to make sure I know where Oakland is. There's a new stadium coming in. They're redoing the team. Everything's going good. We'll see it when we believe it, having lived here for 35+ years.
I'll take those odds on the new stadium, and I'll go no.
It's a perfect show for that. Vasu Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O, the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, April 23rd, powered by Stables Media. We're here every Monday, Thursday, and Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page, as well as my YouTube page. If you miss any of the live broadcast, where you've been, download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, but make sure you get it before the game starts, so that way you don't miss out on winners that we've been giving you lately, because we've been relatively hot lately, I think. The baseball stuff for me has been pretty good. The two underdogs yesterday afternoon. I had one underdog today. Those rockets and bombs you're hearing in the Midwest is not fireworks. It's not July 4th. It's the Chicago Cubs hitting every ball over 105 miles an hour. 6 in the first, 4 in the second. It's 11-2 in the top of the 6th inning. The Brewers trying to mount a comeback. They are in first place in the National League Central. We'll get to all the baseball, but that's the update right now, the only game going on. Let's hit the NBA. You can see the odds at the bottom scrolling through as we get to the NBA. A little some interesting stuff last night. We'll put that up here now. Some of the interesting stuff that went on in the NBA last night. Charlie and I talked about, Casey, about the Phoenix Suns and how hot they were, and they were a road favorite at Boston. Boy, did that not turn out to be good for us last night. -1.5 seemed like a good bet. Boston struggling with all the COVID issues. The fact that they don't have jump shooters, Kemba Walker struggled a little bit. Jason Tatum came out a few weeks ago and said basically, that's not the odds I want. That's the odds I want. Jason Tatum said a few weeks ago that he's having trouble still recovering from COVID. He has to use an inhaler still. And yeah, here comes the Boston Celtics. They get up by 14, 15 points. They end up winning, I think, by 10 is what they won by. But the Phoenix Suns playing well. They're still in second, but they lose a game. They lose a half game back to the Utah Jazz. They're 2 games back in the Western Conference. So we've got some games that are going on tonight. Boston, Brooklyn, Boston on a back-to-back. The Washington Wizards, who figured they're in 10th, and they're actually playing some of the best basketball in the East right now. They're a 12.5-point favorite tonight on the road. Who would have thought that in December or January for the Washington Wizards? And then Portland, Dame Lillard has missed a couple of games. Not sure if he'll be back. They're favorite tonight versus Memphis. And then you look at the East, Brooklyn and Philadelphia tied now for first place atop the Eastern Conference with no Harden. Durant still out. Kyrie Irving, the only one out there, and a very little known guy named Joe Harris who shoots the lights out for Brooklyn, but he definitely helps that team quite a bit. And they've got DeAndre Jordan in the middle. But you can tell, Casey, watching the NBA as far as wagering purposes, you can see the totals are coming down, the point spreads are coming down a little bit because everybody's starting to play defense because they know they've got to fight out for 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, 1 to 6, and then 7 to 10, Casey.
That's a good point. And in fact, I'll be playing it under today, and that's a rare thing. As soon as I got up and looked at that Wizards versus Oklahoma City line, I'm thinking that seems a little high. I mean, if you watch what the Thunder have done, we hate to label it, but it's tank mode. They're trying to get a better lottery pick, and the more they lose, the better chance they have. If you're curious, Washington, despite all their success, they're 5-0 straight up in their last 5 games. So they're also under in 5 straight for the Wizards. Contrast that with Oklahoma City. 4 of their last 5 games at home have gone over the total. I think this is a great game to watch, though. I have a buddy who I trust a lot. He's a very good gambler. In fact, he does it professionally down in Las Vegas. He threw in a little fun ticket on the Wizards months ago to win the Eastern Conference at some astronomical odds. And I kind of laughed at the ticket when I first saw this right when they got Westbrook in uniform. But if you watch that team play a little with the way that they're gelling with the triple-double machine, Westbrook, Bradley Beal, finding a way to kind of distribute the ball between each other, I think they make for an intriguing potential matchup, in this play-in round with the Indiana Pacers, if things hold suit. Now, of course, the Chicago Bulls and Toronto Raptors are sitting right there neck and neck with them. So we're kind of at that point where if you're around 9, 10, 11, 12, you're probably still going to be fighting your heart out. Or you can look at a team like I said, the Thunder. They're 20-39. They've got no chance to get in the tournament. So it doesn't serve them to basically play hard. You might as well lose and try and get yourself a pretty little lottery ticket to see if you can't pick the next big star in the NBA. Looking at the topic we're talking about, still love Phoenix. Been on Phoenix since the bubble last year. There's just something to be said when a team loves their coach and plays hard for them, and that's exactly what they've done the entirety of this season. Save that last night, which is a little weird to think about, but the COVID thing, it's obviously messed up a whole bunch of different sports. I was reading about some UFC guys that were having trouble with the COVID. You talk about Austin dealing with it as well, but they seem to be playing pretty good basketball. And it's funny, every time we start the show and we look up at the top of the standings, there they sit. Those Utah Jazz. SportsCenter doesn't even put them in their first 3 segments. They win pretty much every night, Chuck. Yet they are, I would say, almost a mystery team unless you live in the Western United States.
Yeah, everybody still overlooks them, and it's location, Casey. They've got one newspaper. They basically have 2 radio stations that cover them. They have some local TV that covers them, and their television network is extremely small. So nobody knows about them. In fact, they're in their region. They are really dominated by the coverage of the Denver Nuggets. So they here they are on top, and nobody knows who they are. But I want to go back and play off a couple of points that you made. The Bulls really coming on strong. This Vucevic acquisition really starting to pay off. Last night, double, 18 points, 16 rebounds, 6 assists. I got to see some highlights off of that game, and man, he is playing well. And I don't know whether there's enough there to project, to propel them into that 10th spot, although they're very close. They're very, very close. But I can see where that is going to have a long-term payoff for them. He's fitting in there. The system looks right for him. I think that is a great pickup for the Bulls. And if you're a Bulls fan, have some hope. You haven't had a lot of hope for a while, and I think you've got some hope there. I think Billy Donovan's starting to put some things together there that you're going to like. And then talking about Boston last night, that was crazy. That's the third time this season that the Suns have been held under 100 points. And the Celtics last night, it was Kemba Walker all the time. He had 32 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Jason Tatum last night was 3 for 17, and they still won in a runaway. So that was really surprising to me. But if you're a Boston Celtics fan, you've got to be elated because you've got Tatum down. And who was it that missed the game last night? I forgot. Somebody was out. Somebody big was out last night.
I didn't watch. I was watching baseball.
But they were short. They were short one of their stars. I'm sorry. There's so many games and so many things.
Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown. It just came to me. Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown was out last night, and Walker just picked it up and just carried the team last night. It was so impressive. So Boston kind of picking themselves up off the mat. They're at 32 and 37 or 27 right now. So it was really interesting. The Suns just couldn't make it close last night. And they're on the road. They're in the East. I'm not worried about the Suns. The Suns are going to be the Suns. They're fine. But but the story there was last night what the Celtics did.
Vasu Bad Party, Casey Freelove, Charlie O, the Make the Money and Run podcast. A little more NBA. Go ahead, Casey.
Let me throw a question out at you. You don't have to introduce us 50 times. We're here. Talk about fans returning to the stands. What impact this is going to have. Even the worst team in the Western Conference in all of basketball, the Sacramento Kings, picked up a win the other day, and they said it was directly motivated by having people in the stands. I'm looking at the New York Knicks. Back in there. When you hear the crowd, and I don't care if it's a third full, a 10th full, or if there's 200 people in there, I'm wondering, in your opinion, Vasu, how this is going to affect where you are seated. Because we talk about this empty stadium and it's bubble-like. Who cares what your seat is? You're just going to play against the team across from you. But with these guys actually getting a little positive momentum, from having these guys kind of, get some support for the first time in over a year, I think you're really seeing that kind of start to bear out. And the Knicks are like a prime example of that on an 8-game win streak.
No doubt about it. I was just looking at the standings. The top 3 seeds are set in terms of Brooklyn, Philadelphia, Milwaukee. It's 5 games back. The New York Knicks are 5 games back. I didn't think they had it in them, but now they're in the 4th seed. And then you've got Atlanta. No Trae Young for Atlanta, so they're a road. They're a home underdog tonight. Charlie mentioned the Chicago Bulls. There's still no Zach LaVine from the contact tracing. Chicago and Toronto 1 game back of Washington for 10th in the East. But I'm just trying to figure out 4 to 6 right now, Casey, in terms of the East between the Knicks, the Hawks, and I think Charlotte's at the 6th spot, or they could be in the 7th spot. I don't have the standings in front of me, but that whole 6 to 8 is very close. They're all 4 games within each other. And then you look at the Western Conference, Denver, LA, Portland, and then 4 games separate the 7 to 10 teams in the Western Conference, and the Pelicans are 3 games back of the 10th spot as we wind down to the last 10 to 12, 15 games for some teams in terms of the season. So the Phoenix lost. They put them 2 games back. Utah won their 2 games this week. The Clippers have Houston tonight. They're 4 games back in the standings from the number 1 seed. And then Denver and LA, the Lakers had Anthony Davis come back. He was only 2 of 10 last night. They lost by 5. They should have covered that game. Even Anthony Davis, 50%, probably should have hit a few more shots, and they probably could have won the game, because the one thing the Mavericks do not do is they don't play defense. And they had big leads, and the Lakers came back every time on them until the last second. They couldn't get a shot to either cover the game or end up winning the game from that standpoint. So let me throw it to you back to you, Casey, from the Eastern standpoint, and maybe in the Western standpoint, a couple of seconds here on what you think from 4 to 10 in both conferences, because the top 3 are kind of set right now.
Casey,
Yeah,
if I can jump in here for just a second,
absolutely.
I want to play off what you talked about fans in the stands. The station that I work for, we carry a show out of San Francisco, and that's our station in San Francisco is the flagship for the Golden State Warriors. And yesterday we had our weekly show with Steve Kerr on. And one of the things Steve said, and I guess I was a little surprised by this, uh, but I mean, Kerr, I mean, how much more experience in the NBA do you have to have than Steve Kerr? And Steve said that on that Eastern swing, one of the things that he thinks helped his team was to no longer be in sterile arenas. He said you can pump in all the sound and you can put all the music and have the announcer and do all those things. But he said to have actual live bodies, to hear actual natural reaction to plays, he said it was a tremendous difference to him and the players in the way they felt in playing. And he said it did make a difference. And he said you can't always say that he said very often it doesn't mean a whole lot in the bottom line difference in winning losing, but he said it does make a difference in the way the players feel while they're playing. And he said it did make a difference the way they were playing on the road.
Okay.
Well, I'm just going to bounce around a little bit since we're kind of NBA potpourri in here. If you're curious, because I always am since I bet on these games, the New York Knickerbockers are the best team that you could have been betting on this entire year. They're covering at a 64.4% clip. The Memphis Grizzlies, who can be very Jekyll and very Hyde, because I've hit on them a few times, but I've also seen them lose in some crushing fashion in games, 63% against the spread. Then you've got Phoenix, the LA Clippers, and the Utah Jazz kind of leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the conference. Now, the worst teams, no surprise, the Houston Rockets, only a 32% cover clip. Then the Indiana Pacers, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sacramento Kings, and then New Orleans. And above that, it all kind of bunches together. But these are the kind of fun things, folks, if you are a gambler, just throw that in the old Google search and have some fun with it, especially when you're making your decision, because Las Vegas doesn't want anybody to finish the season at 64% like the Knicks are right now, and they don't want anybody to finish at 32% like the Rockets do. The point there is there's a lot of teams in the middle. If you look at exactly how close the number is and to how far they miss from, there are some opportunities there for you to make that money and run, which is the whole reason we started this whole darn thing a long time ago. I'm very intrigued to looking at what's going to happen in the West with those lower seeds, as you mentioned, especially because I feel like if LeBron, I don't know what LeBron's exact timeline is, but with AD back, the Lakers are obviously going to be playing with more confidence, so they may be able to move back up into that 4 seed, but a little bit lower down, a bunch of teams I wouldn't want to have to play with my playoff life on the line. Dallas Mavericks, of course, Doncic. That also depends on Porzingis' health. The Grizzlies, again, Jekyll and Hyde, a little hard to figure out. The coaching of Pop and the Spurs, who just don't seem to go away. And then those Golden State Warriors, who I'm sure you and Charlie talked about a little yesterday. Let me get my Steph Love session in there as well. I've gone back and forth with this guy. I absolutely loathed him when he got Kevin Durant to come there and made that big three and made basketball boring for that championship run season. But when he doesn't have a Klay Thompson and when he doesn't have the supporting cast he's had in the past, also the number of injuries that he's dealt with this season, to go out there and do the Superman-like things that he did. Somebody take Dwight Howard's Superman cape away from him and send it out to San Francisco. Because, I mean, we are really blessed to be watching basketball at this time. I think that all three of us can relate back to when Reggie Miller would get really hot in the 90s and burn whoever he played. Ray Allen at times during the 90s and 2000s. And now here with Steph and this outside shooting, Vasu, it's really been a joy to watch. And I'm just saying this, I don't want that to be the team that I would have to play, especially if I'm the Utah Jazz or Phoenix Suns in the first round. That sounds a little scary to me.
It'll be interesting to see how the NBA goes from the standpoint of the 7 to 10 seeds, because whoever has, they're all playing for. It's like every regular season game towards the end is like a playoff game, and so you get those guys coming into the playoffs where the top teams are cruising. I don't want to say cruising because that's a bad word, but they're not exactly worried about their standing from a standpoint of 1 to 3, because they know they're going to be in and they're going to have home court. They're going to have a round to wait before the play-in tournaments are. All right, let's look at the games today, Charlie. Brooklyn, Boston. Boston coming off their win with Phoenix yesterday. Brooklyn, a 4.5-point favorite. 226. I mean, chemistry is overrated with the Brooklyn Nets, obviously, because they can shoot. Whoever they put on the court can shoot the ball. Their defense still a little lacking for me. That game against the Pelicans the other night, obviously we know the Pelicans can't play defense. That's why they were able to come back. But that was a terrible game for Brooklyn, one of the worst games that they had in a long while. Miami, a road favorite at Atlanta. Trae Young has been out. He's got a sprained ankle. He'll be out for a while. I see Atlanta moving down into the play-in tournament based on that right there. Charlotte, a 1-point favorite with Cleveland. We talked about the Wizards, 10.5 at Oklahoma City. The Clippers, 9.5 at Houston. Casey documented 32% for Houston. But every once in a while, Houston can bite you, and maybe because Paul George and Kawhi Leonard aren't playing as much right now. They didn't play the other night, and they still beat Memphis. And then those Memphis Grizzlies are going to Portland. Lillard did miss the other night. Clippers did beat them on the road. And then we talked about Golden State. I would not be surprised if Golden State upsets Denver tonight. They did it the last time they played. I know Jamal Murray's out now. I was listening to Denver radio this morning because they're in town. Monty Morris, the backup point guard, is also out. It doesn't really matter who they have at guard because Nikola Jokic is their point guard, point forward, point everything. And it was very funny. I heard the Denver play-by-play guy today, and just a quick story on this. You know, on football, they introduce the guys and they say their height and weight in college and all this other stuff. So the Denver Nuggets do that on their broadcast. So when it comes to Monty Morris, guard, Iowa State, Jamal Murray, Kentucky, etc., against the Jokic, Nikola Jokic, anywhere, whatever you want me to do. And I went to Harvard. That's the kind of joker that he is. He's kind of a funny guy like that. So I got to make sure I look. They said that's his personality and that's who he is. And then Mike Malone described his two brothers. They drive together to the arena all the time. Apparently, his two brothers, they look like serial killers, Mike Malone. So somebody's got to Google that and look that up. But the Denver Nuggets, without Jamal Murray, to me, that's still a surprise that Jamal Murray being out, that they've maintained their pace and they're in fourth place ahead of the Lakers. But even the Denver guys think that once LeBron James comes back and Anthony Davis already there, they're going to start getting on a roll and they may get up into the top four. I would think teams want home court advantage both in the East and the West, Charlie.
Oh, I mean, you always want home court advantage. I mean, because if it goes to the dreaded final game of a series, you always want to be on your own home court. Just the pure stats of winning in those playoff series tell you if you've got to go to a final game, a fifth or a seventh, whatever it is going to be, you've got to be on your home court because it leans that way. So yeah, you want home court advantage no matter what. So that's a big thing. Yeah, go.
Casey, what do you think? I mean, in terms of the bubble and in terms of the lack of attendance this year, I know fans are coming back a little bit. Does it really matter? I mean, once everybody gets healthy, does home court really matter? Because a lot of teams still talking about the Lakers when LeBron James come back, whether they're going to be getting 3 games at home versus 4 games at home. It's going to be a factor, but I don't think it's going to be as big a factor as it was 2 years ago before we went into the pandemic.
I agree. I think that there is something to be said when you get on a run and you've got that at least somewhat similar sound like what we have a full arena. And also, I mean, put it this way, guys, not to play Dr. Freelove here, but if you're going to go through all the BS that it requires to get into a basketball game, stupid vaccination cards and COVID tests, and here's my papers, then you really want to be at that basketball game. So you're probably going to be a pretty passionate fan of the sport if you're going to put your butt in the seat. I myself will not be giving $1 to my hometown team until they make some massive changes up and down their roster and with their staff. But that's a whole nother fan rant that we could save for another program. So to your question, I guess it may not matter as much, but for the fans that are there, they're going to be rabid. They're going to be excited. And I also want to talk about the MVP race, which we haven't touched on very much, but how weird is it now to see Nikola Jokic, who's a great player, no disrespect, but a massive minus 360 favorite to win the NBA MVP. It's almost like Jamal Murray going down kind of helped them a little bit. Joel Embiid, who you don't hear that much about, but I can hear is Big Ben. He's plus 340, the number 2 choice. And then Steph Curry, he went from like 100 to 1 2 weeks ago. He's all the way up to 17 to 1 now because of what he's done leading the Warriors. Behind him, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 20 to 1 odds. Harden is there, but he's probably not played enough to get any, real juice. LeBron's all the way down at 45 to 1. So I think it's kind of cool to see that a sport in years past has become such a 3-point shootout where centers didn't really matter and rebounding became a secondary thing to have 2 of the top 3 picks or the top 2 picks right now, actual traditional big men.
Casey, I want to play off your not being a doctor. I'm going to play a doctor on TV here for a minute, and that is that one thing that's going to happen throughout the playoffs, guys, as we get farther into June. And don't forget, if everything goes to the max in these series, the finals could end on July the 22nd. And as more and more people get inoculated, these stadiums are going to start, these arenas are going to start to fill up. So I am going to contend that because these arenas are going to start getting more and more up to capacity, home court advantage is going to start to take become more of a factor because there is going to be a larger and larger crowd in those arenas.
Don't contend. It's such a bad look, Charlie. Don't contend. I mean, don't just say your point, but you don't have to be a contender to make your point on this.
I like Dr. Fauci. I want to be Dr. Fauci. Come on, let me fantasize.
All right, let's wrap up the NBA. What games are you looking at, Casey, tonight in terms of what we got for the game tonight? If you got any games you're looking at over the weekend, we don't have the lines for those games yet, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna keep an eye on my main man Russ Westbrook and see if he can't get another. About that one, and typically a 25-33 Wizards at a 20-39 Thunder wouldn't do that for me. But you said it right off the top, my friend. What the heck? This is a big line for a team that doesn't have a big record. It tells me you're going to see a lot of OKC Thunder guys sitting on their rear ends. I think the focal point of the association tonight will be in two places. On the East Coast with the until it's 5 minutes before tip-off Brooklyn Nets, because God knows who's going to play for them. Seems like night in and night out. Against those Celtics who are coming off a nice momentum-building win against Phoenix last night. Criticize the guy. Kyrie Irving has done a good job being in there consistently for them. I feel terrible that James Harden can't be in there because I know he really wants to be. Kevin Durant is very hard to figure out as far as his launch. And then we talked about last week the loss of LaMarcus Aldridge, who's no longer with the team. Out west, Nuggets Warriors. Denver -2.5. It's one of those lines where you look at it and I want you to bet the Nuggets, but Steph's got something for him perhaps. And of course, two of the top three picks for the NBA MVP going to get it on there with a few fans in the stands. In fact, about that adorable pup that was in the stands for the Giants game yesterday, or the rabbit that was in the Giants game yesterday. And I did read in the article that rabbit may be traveling over San Francisco to be at a Warriors game. So maybe these anxiety relieving animals will help the Warriors propel themselves to a win. And in all seriousness, Grizzlies, Blazers, shuffle at the bottom of the 8, 9, 10. Who's going to get in there and have a chance to dance? For some reason, as much as I love John Morant, I have trouble believing in the Memphis Grizzlies as a consistent one game over 500. They were a team that early on in the year I thought, okay, that'll be the one that falls out to allow a team like the Pelicans or the Kings, and again, this is months ago, to have a chance to get into this play. I think it's a really nice night as far as the schedule. And the other thing, with all that said, I have a feeling if I text either of you two guys, I'm going to be like, what are you watching? And all three of us will be like, well, Dodgers, Padres.
We'll get to baseball in a second, but a couple of quick NBA notes here. I'll be looking at the Brooklyn-Boston game. I'll be tuning in now because I want to see how Boston comes back, especially with the COVID issues. Off of back-to-back, big win versus Phoenix, and they're traveling to Brooklyn for that game as well. I'm kind of interested to see how Atlanta is without Trae Young. They've got Herter, they've got Capella inside, but I think Miami might be too strong for them, although Miami has not played strong this year as well. Russell Westbrook, obviously Bradley Beal that nobody talks about, 32 points a game leading the NBA in scoring, and then the Denver Golden State game late night tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock here on the West Coast. The last time they played, Denver was a 5.5 point favorite, and the Warriors came back from 10 down and beat Denver. And of course, Portland, Memphis, what a play-in tournament they had last year in the bubble. So it'll be very interesting, especially if Lillard's back. Looks like McCollum's healthy again. Looks like Nurkic is playing well as well too. And Memphis doesn't play any defense, so 3.5 at home for Portland might be the way to go, depending on who comes in. And then we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Speaking of Nikola Vukovic, Zach LaVine's still out with the COVID issues. So that's a big loss for them at 27 points a game for the Bulls. So that may be their undoing. Nikola Vukovic, of all the jump shooters and all the great shooters in the NBA, still the number one catch and shoot jump shot shooter in the NBA inside the 3-point line, nearly 50% off passes at catch and shoot. So big trade by the Bulls. That and hopefully for the future for him and Levine and the guys that they have there, the Bulls starting to make a move in the East. All right, that's going to wrap up the NBA. We'll be back in 30 seconds. We'll talk baseball. We got a big weekend coming up. Seattle, Boston, the Dodgers, Padres, Brewers have really been drubbed by the Cubs in terms of the score, but they're still in first place in the NL Central, and the Cubs are hot after beating the Mets the last two games in a row. We'll talk all baseball coming up after the break. 30 seconds. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vada, Party Casey, Free Love, Charlie O, powered by Stables Media. You can catch us Monday, Thursday, Friday, 15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. Is there an echo going on there? I hear an echo.
Yeah, I'm getting an echo there too, guys.
I'm muting. Hang on. I'll be back.
Here. All right, let me try this again here. We're here Monday, Thursday, Friday, 4:15, Facebook Live, YouTube page. Download and subscribe if you miss any of the live broadcast. So let me go into this. The only day game, it's 15-2 Chicago. I had the Brewers picked today because I thought they were hot coming off their Padres series. 10-0 after the second inning. So what do you do to try and make it up? You go live bet. So the over-under was 15.5. So what we're trying to point out to everybody is not only are we doing a show for the wagering community, we are the wagering community. We have games on this. Casey missed it yesterday where I was half distracted with the Reds and Diamondbacks game yesterday while I'm trying to do the show.
He was really distracted.
Arizona's bullpen, it blows an 8-4 lead. They go to extra innings. They get 6 in the 10th, and then the Reds come back with 3 in the bottom of the 10th with the tying run at the plate. And I'm like, holy cow, what the hell is going on here? So we sympathize with you. We empathize with you, the wagering public. We're doing this show for your part, but also for our part. So to make up for the Brewers' loss, unless they have a massive comeback, the over 15.5 did come through. So I break even and actually end up winning a few bucks on it just from the underdogs odds. So we feel you betting public out there is the bottom line. Let's move on to baseball now a little bit. Go ahead, Casey. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, if you want to check in with us, fire an email over to mtmrpodcast@gmail.com. I'm very curious as far as you, the listener, and your live betting strategy, how you've employed it this year. I have some friends that are very big on waiting for the heavy hitting favorites to get into a deficit and then start pounding the favorite to come back, which has happened quite a bit because, as Vasu always says, bullpens matter, and that was exhibited yesterday. Live betting can be a very lucrative thing. There's one trend that I've seen that I really don't like, though, lately. It's these guys that I don't even know are interested in baseball enough to watch 9 innings. They want to jump in on their, will there be a run scored in the first inning? That's a very tough thing to decipher because even the best pitchers in baseball can throw one bad pitch. It leaves the yard, and your money leaves your wallet. So I understand first 5 betting. I'm a big fan of that. I definitely enjoy betting because I didn't get a feel as somebody who's watched a lot of baseball for who looks good, what pitches are working, wind conditions, hell, even fan reactions. But when you're live betting, you get very nice. Over under 15.5, you think, oh, hell yeah, that's going to stay under. Well, no, it's not. It's already flown over at 15-2. So reach out to us, mtmerpodcast@gmail.com. And questions or comments about the way you're employing your live betting strategies during this season. I'm very curious to see how that's going.
Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live as well for the comments and all the follow that we get during the live broadcast as well, too. Did I put Charlie's picks up there already? Oh, you put your picks up?
No, that was me. I was playing.
Okay.
I love all these little things we can do.
I know. This is our new deal here, so we're all doing this. Let's get to some MLB notes. The big stories for the weekend this weekend: Seattle, Boston, 2 first-place teams that nobody thought were going to be in first place. The Mariners take the game 7-3 in 10 innings. They got 4 runs in the top of the 10th inning. Mitch Haniger with a 3-run home run. Here's what I found interesting in that game: 7 runs on 3 hits for the Seattle Mariners. Both teams had an error. The Boston defense was terrible. They've lost 2 in a row. The last game against the Toronto series, they've got Seattle for 3 more games this weekend. what are we making of this series? And then, of course, in the National League, the Padres, after getting swept at home by the Milwaukee Brewers, they get the Dodgers and their ace, Walker Buehler, a 3-2 game. Dodgers kind of, for the most of the year, they're 15-5, so I don't think they're really that worried about it. But the fact is that they did not get the big hits that they needed with runners in scoring position. They had that shot in the 8th inning. What a play by Jay Cronenworth. Anybody see the highlight on that to turn that double play to stuff out that rally? And then Mark Melancon, forgot Mark Melancon was around, fans. He's with San Diego, and he leads the National League in saves right now. He might lead all of baseball in saves with 7 saves. So, Casey, I'll start with you. Those are the 2 big series right now, Boston, Seattle, and the Dodgers, Padres. What's your take on those?
Yeah, I like them both. I'm going to have a play on that Mariners game when we get to picks a little bit later, but let's start with the main event. Just some fun facts for you to keep an eye on during the game. The total's gone under in the last 5 straight for the Padres, so that's something I would set. 6.5, a very low number because you've got Kershaw and you've got Darvish on the mound, so that's something you want to keep an eye on. The Padres actually 7-2 in their last 9 road games, and the Dodgers are 7-1 in their last 8 home games. So something's got to give. For some reason, as much as I expect LA to win this division, and they're going to, and as much as I expect I just feel like they've got a little bit better finger on the pulse of what's happening as far as being able to get wins here early in the season. They're going to matter most later in the season. The middle and back end of the rotation. Obviously, they've got powerful hitters, but as a team overall, I'd say they've underachieved a little bit considering their salary size on their roster. You Darvish, 1-1, 2.55 ERA. Kershaw coming in there, 3-1 with a 2.19 earned run average. And the line here is, it's not really, but minus 45 if you want to get on Kershaw, minus 145, plus 135 if you want to take the Padres on the money line. As far as trends, the cash is on those San Diego Padres. So I guess, Chuck, and I can get back to the Seattle series in a minute, but let me throw it over to Charlie because I know you're watching this series as well. San Diego's like the little brother that's in 7th grade, and the Dodgers are the brother that's in 10th grade, and he wants to go out front and shoot a little bit of hoop, and maybe you'll let him hang around for a little bit. But when it comes to stuff, he gets slammed right back in his face and send him inside crying.
Yeah, Casey, that game last night was pretty amazing. We talked yesterday about Waverly and how he was going to be a factor in that game as a pitcher. Did I get his name right? Was that the starting pitcher?
For who?
The starting pitcher for San Diego.
Oh, Ryan Weathers. Weathers.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Again, too many players, too many sports. Weathers. He was amazing. He shut them out. He shut the Dodgers out for almost the first 6 innings. The last guy who's made his first start at Dodger Stadium to do the same thing in his rookie year was a guy by the name of Kershaw. And, he just came out and gave his team a tremendous step up in that game. And for San Diego to take game 1 in that series, I think was a momentum builder for his team. They played very well. Now, they had to hang on in that game, but they played very well, and I think you're right. Plus the other significance of that win last night, that was the Dodgers' first loss at home this season. So, I mean, there were a lot of big things in that game last night that were significant. I mean, all the tilt last night was to the Dodgers, and San Diego said, So, Casey, to your favorite method of wagering, fade the public, because the public last night was all going to the Dodgers and the win went to San Diego. So if you faded the public last night, you went home a winner.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. The only thing that makes me nervous about fading the public tonight is, well, they've got all these nerdy stats that people love, and WAR is one of them. It's ranked 6th in the big leagues right now. So that means that the team plays well when he's on the mound. Yu Darvish is pretty darn good as well. I think that's why this total's so low. You're not going to see a whole lot over the course of a Major League Baseball season. You know, it's usually 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, depending on which team and which park they're playing in. But I think this is going to be kind of a rough right now. And I couldn't play run line -1.5 on any of these games. I think I could get on Kershaw, although he's not one of my official picks tonight. But look, the cool thing is baseball needs and they've got him here. Both teams have said how important this series is early on, and the fact that it's a 4-game set makes it extra tasty because now we get an even better barometer of where both teams sit. The Giants fans listening to this are probably going, well, why the hell haven't you talked about my team yet? We're in second place in the division, gosh darn it.
We're going to right now. National League West continues. The San Francisco Giants are talking about how everybody was talking about the Dodgers and Padres at the beginning. I said at the beginning of the year, and this is coming as a Dodgers fan, but also as somewhat of an analyst here. Giants starting pitching is going to be really good. Are they really good? Yeah, 5 shutouts this year. Their bullpen has been a lot better than everybody thought they were going to be. Jake McGee has only had the 1 blown save. He's been really good. Now they've added a couple more relievers of Duvall, and Matt Whistler has 1 bad game, but he's been good since then. And then this Soto kid last night who made his major league debut throwing wipeout sliders from the left-hand side. I mean, I know the Marlins don't hit very much, and they probably owe the Marlins last week for the blown saves and the late inning win. The Marlins did take 2 out of 3 for the Giants last weekend, so they owe them a little bit. But this is a big series for the Giants at home. Chance to take 3 out of 4, kind of stay within reach of the Dodgers for an unworldly pace right now. 15-5. The Giants only 2 games back. San Diego 4 games back. Arizona, Colorado, we don't talk much about unless we have wagers on them. And we will have wagers on them throughout the year because there will be games that we have on them. But the National League West right now is shaping up kind of how I thought. And I thought to myself that don't underestimate the San Francisco Giants, at least for second place. Now, I think Casey, the 3 of us probably agree that the Dodgers probably will win the division. But you know what? That's why they play the games. I wouldn't be surprised if they go on the way the Dodgers are hitting right now. And Betts got hurt the other night. He was back in the lineup. The fact is that they can go through a slump and they're starting pitching. Their bullpen is not settled right now, talking about the Dodgers. And the fact is that they could go through a slump, and all of a sudden you have a 4-game lead with 5 to go, or I'm sorry, 4-game lead with 2 weeks to go, and you're playing nothing but National League West teams at the end of the year, and it could end up being that way. So I think this first half will be a good testing ground where the Giants, Padres, and Dodgers feel out each other and see where they're going with that. All right, let's move on to the Central Division here a little bit. Milwaukee Brewers come off.
I think Casey had something on the Giants there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Casey. I didn't see that.
Miami's not good. And then you've got a 3-game series against Colorado, who's also not good. Now, sprinkled in between that, it goes Marlins, Rockies, then again the Rockies, then again the Padres. But my point is, it's not that tough of a schedule here in the first half. They've still got the Rangers on tap, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Late May. But if you're a Giants fan, you need this team to come out and get a lot of wins early because Vasu just pointed out what's going to happen at the end of the year when it's all in-division games. So I think against the Pirates, against the Texas Rangers, and tonight against Miami, I'd be feeling pretty good if I'm sitting by the bay right now. That was my point.
And I've got a little factoid. Quick, if you're a wagerer, all these little things play into when you wager. Kurt Casale, who's the backup catcher, was behind the plate last night. He has 5 consecutive shutouts when he's behind the plate so far this season. Just think about that if he's starting behind the plate.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure they're going to replace Posey for every game, but
no. But just think about that if he's started.
Yeah, no, I know. I think he gets when Cueto comes back, he'll get the Cueto games. All right, let's move over to the National League East a little bit. Philadelphia and the Mets are both tied for first place. They're at 500. The division's kind of down a little bit. I know Atlanta's had some injuries and they haven't hit. Ronald Acuna is the only one hitting. Freddie Freeman's the only one hitting on that team, but their defense is horrible, and that's cost them some games. They lost 3 out of 4 to Miami. They're both 8-10, tied for second, third, whatever, third or fourth in the division. And then Washington 7-9. Max Scherzer pitched a great game, but they don't have a lot right now outside of Soto. Trey Turner's playing well. Zimmerman actually having a good year, coming back as well. So the National League East, kind of the down division this year, because I think the Central Division is pretty strong with 4 teams that are going to contend. I think St. Louis will be better. Cincinnati's pretty good. Obviously, Milwaukee going into San Diego and sweeping San Diego. Nobody saw that coming. And then the Cubs, who were awful in the first 2 weeks, kind of like the A's were first 2 weeks for us in the Bay Area. The Cubs have started some numbers on what they did against the Mets, and then today putting up 10 runs in the first 2 innings to start. And that's a big confidence builder going into a big series against the first place team with the Milwaukee Brewers, Casey.
Yeah, you can see, as we've talked about in the preseason, now if you're in Vegas or if you're using FanDuel or DraftKings, they will allow you to wager as far as winners, which is something that is a new trend and something that you did not see a lot in the past. Basically, if you didn't get in there by the beginning of opening pitch, you were shut out for the year. That has changed a little bit. That's how the numbers as far as division favorites. I'm looking here at the NL Central odds. The Milwaukee Brewers, obviously, you knew they were going to move up. I mean, they've got the guy, the most dominating pitcher in baseball right now in Burnson. So they're plus 165 to win the division. But getting back to your point about how tight this bad boy is going to be, St. Louis is 2-1. The Reds are plus 210. And then it expands out with the Cubs. But I think, as we said in the preseason, this is going to be a tough division to figure out. I think one of the reasons why the Brewers don't get the love is kind of like the Salt Lake City, as you talked about earlier. Here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it's not a huge media market. They definitely aren't going to be getting top coverage on SportsCenter or having people in the West really follow them as closely, but they are a very talented team schedule right now. Quick thought before I send it to Chuck, the NL East, they couldn't figure this thing out before the season, and they're having no more success figuring it out now. The Braves are actually the first pick of the Mets, who were the second pick before the season. Stay with me here. The Mets are minus $1.10 to win the division. That division's almost all 500. Don't tell me right now the Mets are definitely going to win the division. The Phillies, my preseason long shot pick, which was getting you 8.5 to 1, have now moved down to 4.5 to 1. And then I guess they just abandoned all hope on the Washington Nationals. They're now up to 10 to 1 as far as the way that goes. Last point on this stuff, boys. We like to look at run differential. The East, it stinks. It's barely watchable. That's minus 15 run differential. 7-7 in first place. Phillies minus 6 run differential. 9-9 in second place. And then the Nats, only 2 games under 500, Chuck, but they're 20 games under their run differential. They need to start scoring a little bit if they want to be talked about a little bit more. I have a feeling this is just not going to be a good year overall for that division, and that's why I said throw just a few bucks on the Phillies.
Casey, I think it would be safe to say, and if we could find a line someplace in some sports book, I would throw some money at it. But I think it would be safe to say the wild card is not coming out of the National League East.
That's a great bet. Take that one to the bank.
Because it's messed up. It's messed up. Guys, I want to jump to something just real quick, and then we can back into this. But I watched all the highlights yesterday, and I had a chance to just kind of run things back and forth. I know we talk a lot about sabermetrics, and everybody's hung up on that, and everybody likes it a lot. Start watching defensive stats, because yesterday I saw the worst day of defensive baseball that I have seen in years. Vasu and I spent a long time calling baseball at the Class A minor league level. And I'm telling you, if the Class A players played the kind of defense that we saw yesterday in the major leagues, they would have been unemployed. I'm serious. They would have been cut loose. Their contracts canceled. They would have been gone. And the defense yesterday, all the way around, from pitchers to left fielders to everything else, was horrible. So if you are wagering on teams, at least spend a little time looking at what their defensive stats are, because defense is so horrible right now. You need to know what kind of defense they're playing when they're going up against each other.
Well, I mean, all the defense that's been played out. We talked about the Twins and A's. We'll get to the A's in a second here as we switch over to the American League. But boy, one defensive play that I wish was an error was the Cronenworth error last night. Instead of, he made a great play and they turned a double play and shut the Dodgers down, because that ball gets through. That's 2 runs. And then the Dodgers go to the 9th inning with the lead where they're almost unbeatable. So that's the fan in me talking. That's the worst 10 seconds of the show as we move on to the American League. The Oakland A's, better to be lucky than good sometimes. I'm watching this game Wednesday with a cocktail in my hand going like, how do the A's give up all these runs? Sergio Romo Trevino, I guess he's been overused a little bit. The bullpen's not very good. If they stay in contention, they're going to have to get somebody. They're going to have to get some more pieces for that bullpen because right now the bullpen is giving up those runs. And I'm sitting there watching the Twins throw the ball around all over the field all week. I know they didn't have the 2 games against the Angels on the weekend, and they postponed on Monday night against the A's. They had a doubleheader Tuesday and Wednesday. But to watch the Twins throw that ball around, a team that's supposed to be picked to be right there in the Central Division, yes, it's better to be lucky than good, and you're going to need those games. They're on an 11-game winning streak, talking about the A's, thanks in part to some luck as well. But, Casey, they're your Oakland A's. I'm going to let you take it from there.
Well, the one team that hasn't moved around at all as far as future betting odds, they've left quite a bit, but the A's are still plus 125 as they were in the preseason to win the AL West. Look, we've all followed this team because we all live in Northern California. They took a slow start. They got 1-6 slow, but they start slow, and their time to turn it on is right around the All-Star break and definitely the beginning of the second half. So I guess they just flipped the switch and kicked it up a notch. And I remember listening to one of the radio broadcasts because my station airs the Oakland games. He was having a conversation with Matt Olson before the season, and Olson was like really loose and saying, "Look, this is the best team that I've been on. This is better than any other edition that I've been on recently." Bob Melvin kind of echoed those sentiments as well. I know that the big questions were about Luzardo and Minaya and who's going to be the fifth starter. Get your bullpen and get a little bit of consistency out of them, which they're still looking for. You have a chance to win. Nobody doubts that this team offensively is one you don't want to see. The only disappointment on this team is that I could have told you he'd be a disappointment before he got here. Ask any Rangers fan. But the rest of the guys doing things they shouldn't even be doing. Jed Lowry's having an amazing season. You know what Chapman's going to get? Did a great job calling the game from behind the plate and also producing offense. Chuck, they attack you in so many different ways. That's why there's been so many different types of heroics. And another point, they're down. Now, I'm not going to say that, pump my chest about that fluky win because of awful defense against the Minnesota Twins the other day. But sometimes you just catch those of 13-12. I think these guys have got to be feeling very confident, also realizing that their division's a little upside down right now with the Mariners at the top. The Astros, if you can just keep this going, you're not going to go on many 11-game winning streaks, but if you can just consistently win 2 out of 3 and pick up series, get them under your belt, that's going to put you in the most important position and become the division winner at the end of the year and not in the stupid wild card game again.
Casey, one thing that we know about this team, and we know about it because we cover them, is the fact that this team plays well on the road. And one of the reasons why they play well on the road is because they like each other. This is one of those crazy teams where they go on the road and they hang out. They play golf together. They go out to the movies together. They bowl. They like each other, which is crazy because teams don't do that anymore. But these guys do. They're young guys. They like to hang out. They got a manager who likes them. They like the manager. They like their coaches. I mean, this isn't supposed to happen in professional sports anymore, and they do. And this team plays very well on the road. And in today's game, if you got a team that can play well on the road, you're always going to be formidable. And I think that's one thing that's really in their favor.
Vasu Vasu, part of Casey Freelove, Charlie O, Make the Money and Run podcast. All right, what games are we looking at? What baseball games? What series are we looking at for the weekend, Casey? What do you got in the next couple of minutes here for series you're interested in besides Dodgers, Padres, A's, Orioles? The A's are going to Baltimore this weekend, and the Red Sox, Seattle, a good series as well too.
Well, I enjoy a dumpster fire. I'll be watching those New York Yankees, one of the most pathetic teams in all of Major League Baseball, and how I enjoy watching them lose game in and game out. It's funny, in the daily news sports sections online just to see the doom and gloom that's going on out there, all the money that they wasted. Even their broadcasters sometimes, it's like, dude, are you watching the same baseball team? Because they're just not good, and there's no way to spin it. And I enjoy every minute of it. Sorry. There's only a few things in life I hate, and the New York Yankees are certainly one of them. So I'll have an eye on Yankees. And the series is pretty intriguing as well. Nobody had the Mariners at 12-7 and Boston at 12-8, especially leading the American League East right now this early part of the season. Mariners 6-2 away, Red Sox 6-7 at home. So you got to think Boston's going to want to try and right that ship a little bit. I always check in on the Blue Jays because they are the genetic team of the future. They've got some of my favorite childhood heroes' sons now all playing for them. So I'm big on that. And then look, it's just another nice weekend. Angels Astros will eventually bounce back. If you like interleague, Pirates and Twins, why not? Reds Cardinals could be decent, but the main event really is Padres and Dodgers. I'll get things started. In Major League Baseball today, I will be definitely watching the Mariners and Red Sox because I'm going with the Mariners first 5. You're getting back $1.10. I don't know if they can win the whole thing, but I think Seattle can keep Boston down for just a little bit. In the later ones, we've got the Braves going against on the screen. My goodness, Braves against the Diamondbacks. That one gets going at 4:20. I like Noah, even though he hasn't had a lot of juice, and I know the Diamondbacks are playing a little bit better. Minus 170. One NBA pick. As I mentioned, Oklahoma City is resting all their guys because they want to get a better lottery pick. I think the Wizards will do their part as far as scoring, but I think we're going to have to do a total there, Charlie. So those are my 3 picks. Mariners first 5, Braves, and Wizards Thunders under 231.5.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm just going to do a little projection ahead for everybody for tomorrow, and I don't know who's projected to be on the mound or anything else. I'm just looking at this game between the Cubs and the Brewers. Right now, the Cubs up 15-2. That game in the bottom of the 8th inning. Look leaning towards the Brewers tomorrow, because if you watch traditionally, when one team gets blown out like this, the winning team tends not to produce well the following day. So look all the numbers over. Don't automatically throw your money at the Brewers, but the Brewers are a lean tomorrow automatically because of this blowout. Okay, here are my picks for today. I am going to go against the grain, if you will. Miami, Atlanta in the NBA, I'm going to go over 212. These teams have kind of just been leaning there. They don't play much defense, and so I'm going to go over there because I don't think they're going to find any defense either anytime soon. So I'm going to go over 212 there. In the MLB, I'm going to go in a game that I could care less about, but I think it's going to make me some money. So I'm going to go in take the Phillies Rockies game, and I am going to take the Rockies minus 125 on the money line.
All right, my picks for the day are I'm going to go with the Giants again. Alex Wood. I really like Alex Wood. He's pitched well. I know he's coming off injury, but the Marlins do not hit the ball well at night, and especially the time they come to San Francisco minus 126. I'm going to go with the Mariners. After watching them play last night, watch the Red Sox throw the ball around the field, I'm just not sold on the Red Sox defensively, and I think Kikuchi will end up taking Martinez Perez plus 128. Steven Matz is 3-0, early Cy Young candidate. The Toronto Blue Jays playing well. Behind him, they score him about 7.5 runs a game, too. I know it's Tyler Glasnow on the Tampa Bay Rays, but Toronto plus 143, I'm going to go with Matz until he loses. Houston Astros, what they did to the Angels, I got a bad feeling for the Angels this weekend. I got a feeling that their 500 record and what they've done early to start is going to come back to haunt them. Zach Greinke always has a way to beat the Angels. Minus 135 seems low for me. That's baseball. In the NBA, Boston, after their win last night, back-to-backs are tough, and they're going to Brooklyn. Brooklyn's still pretty good, even without their superstar playing. Minus 4.5 there. And then the Warriors, they beat them the first time. I think they'll beat them a second time. Plus 2.5. Curry goes for 72 tonight against the Nuggets. And we'll what's the over-under on the prop bet on that, Casey?
I'll take that bet.
All right, real quickly, those are my picks. Have fun with this weekend. Thanks to Christine, David Andrews, everybody on Facebook Live, Stables Media YouTube page. Download, subscribe anywhere you get the podcast if you missed the live broadcast. He's Casey Freelove. He's Charlie O. We'll be back on Monday at 4:15. Back on Monday at 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. You can catch us Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every week with the Make the Money and Run podcast. All right, that's going to do it for us. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the games. Good luck. Make some money. We'll see you on Monday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Dusty, congratulations on night.